$1 trillion worth of tax cuts for every millionaire and billionaire in our society. We can't afford it. And I refuse to renew them again.
The president setting his deficit target, criticizing Republicans over the tax cuts for the rich. Minority Whip Steny Hoyer joins us this morning with some reaction. Good to see you, Congressman. Good to have you back.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
You know, the general take last week with the 2011 budget agreement was that this town, D.C., can actually work, that the two sides trust each other somewhat again. And the speech last night seems to have destroyed a lot of that sentiment. Do you think that's true?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure your initial premise was correct.
Well, I started from zero.
We had a lot of fits and starts to get to where we got. Yeah. But I would hope that's not the case. We had a good meeting in the White House yesterday. I think a good, frank discussion. I think the president's speech laid out essentially what the commission that he appointed, which was headed by former Chief of Staff Bowles and Senator Alan Simpson, which said, yes, we've got to bring spending down. I think that's generally agreed upon. We've got to rein in this deficit and debt. It's dangerous to our economy, dangerous to our people, dangerous to the competitiveness of our country internationally. What the president indicated was, yes, we've got to bring it down. We're going to cut spending by about 2/3 of that $4 trillion that he wants to cut over the next 12 years. And rely on revenues, that is paying for what we buy, for the other third, which is essentially the formula that the commission set forward. David Stockman, in referring to the alternative Ryan budget, made it very clear that he thought that was not a reasonable alternative, and that in fact we had to rely to a much greater degree than the Republicans, who say absolutely no on revenues.
Well, let me ask you this. The Ryan proposal is a resolution that nobody expects to become law, obviously. Is the president's first speech the equivalent of a resolution in that it has within it the capacity for compromise and change? I
think it does, absolutely. And when you say the Ryan budget not going to become law, of course, budgets don't become law, as you know. The president doesn't participate in that process. But I don't expect the Senate...
Speeches don't become law either, though, Leader Hoyer. That was a speech last night. That wasn't a proposal.
Oh, nor did I say it was. That was your premise, not mine.
I love why don't you come over to our side? Come over to the other side, Steny.
The fact of the matter is, I don't think I'm going to do that. The fact of the matter is, there needs to be not another side. There needs to be a meeting of the sides. We need to reach agreement. We need to reach agreement on extending the debt limit so that this country pays its bills and doesn't put the international or the domestic financial marketplace in chaos. We need to come to agreement on how we're going to cut spending if our children and grandchildren are going to inherit a country that is fiscally stable and successful and competitive in the international markets. So I think what the president did was put on the table his proposal as to how we ought to get there. Mr. Ryan's put on what the Republicans' proposal is to get there. Now we need to sit down, do some hard thinking, make some compromises, but there is no alternative to getting a handle on the finances of this country, period. The American public know that, and I think almost everybody on the Hill knows that. What we can't do, however, is in the process undermine, and this is what the president said, the most vulnerable in America, that we have a responsibility of trying to help and lift up and educate and make sure that we can out-innovate and outbuild our competitors. And we need to make sure that we contribute to paying for what we are continue to buy, even in a reduced budget scenario.
Congressman, in his speech yesterday, the president set out a medium-term vision for fiscal adjustment. Can you speak to how that's going to interact with a much shorter-term issue, which is the debt ceiling? How are the two things going to come together?
Well, we discussed the debt ceiling yesterday. I made the observation that everybody in the room adopts the premise that not raising the debt ceiling is not an option. Every Republican made that premise, and every Democrat made that premise. Jamie Dimon has indicated that if that happened, there would be chaos in the fiscal community and would undermine our economy very, very badly and undermine our credibility in international markets. So I think there is agreement that's not an option. My suggestion was, look, I think the markets would be stabilized. I think the American public would see it as a real victory if we came together and said, on this, we can agree because it's in the best interest of our country and it's essential to do. That didn't come out of that meeting, unfortunately, but I think in the short term, what we may do and what I hope we'll do is vote on that in a bipartisan way with the realization that there's no other option. Mr. Cantor said that, Mr. Boehner said that, and I think we all understand that.
Leader, I'm just philosophically, do you think that it's going to be possible, just with these entitlements, let's just focus on Medicare and Medicaid, do you think it's going to be possible to just generate enough revenues to basically keep this? I get, you know, the president made a lot of comments about this is the America that I know. No one's going to change what America stands for. Do you think it's going to be possible to keep Medicare and Medicaid essentially as they are and raise taxes enough to pay for that? Or do you think we actually do need to fundamentally change those two entitlements?
I think that the key word there is fundamentally. My own view is that, and I've said this in a speech that I made over a year ago, I think at this point in time, we need to look at entitlements. We need to restrain spending on these entitlements, make sure that they are fiscally sustainable over the long term and are available for people in the future. The issue really that the president raised and Ryan raises, the Republicans want to change fundamentally, which is the word you used, the nature of Medicare and Medicaid. The guarantee that is there that people can rely on to what is either a voucher plan or a capped payment on which people couldn't rely and subject seniors to all the risk of A, whether they could get insurance, and B, whether or not they can afford that insurance. To that extent, I think that again, fundamental is the issue. Right. I think the character of those two entitlements need to be maintained, but I think clearly they need to be addressed. They need to be addressed to contain costs to make them affordable in the long run.
Right. Leader Hoyer, good to talk to you as always.
Okay,
thanks
good
for your
to talk
time.
to you.
Steny Hoyer, Minority Whip.
All right, up next, could the Fed use interest rate hikes to break the back of the commodity price surge? Steve Leisman joins us with insight. Really? On the Fed, that'll be good. On the Fed's current thinking, and still to come this morning, he's been making market calls and warning investors of company fraud since the days of Enron. Actually, I know from experience, all the way since Baldwin United. We say Enron and Tyco. It goes back to Baldwin United, if you remember that. Jim Chanos, he was 22 years old. Jim Chanos joins us in just a few minutes. Squawkbox is back in a moment.
Time now for today's